Welcome to Am I Right? And Steve, thanks for sitting in for Debbie Dingle. She'll be back next week.
Absolutely.
Steve, we've been watching the violence and the murder rate in Detroit since the first of the year, and it really has been a slaughter. In January, there was almost a murder a day. And then over this past weekend, 9 more shootings. What on earth is going on, and what has to be done to stop it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, but I am sure that we haven't heard the right things from Mayor Bing or our Chief Ralph Godby about what they want to do about it. I mean, I think this is an ongoing issue in the city, is that the leadership does not say the right things about this, set the tone for the cultural change that has to take place. And I don't think they have the right strategies in place. I mean, I think if you look at the trend of other crimes going down at the same time murders going up, there's something they're not doing that's not communicating to people that this is not going to be tolerated.
Talk to a police officer who thought, who was advocating going back to the days when they stopped folks and shook them down and emptied your pockets and tried to get the guns off the street. I mean, particularly teenagers who seem to be behind most of these shootings,
right.
Teenagers and young adults. But would a more aggressive policing strategy, more police presence on the streets, would that help us?
I think it would. I mean, I think if you look at places like New York and Boston, Baltimore, the strategies that they employed to drop the murder rates in those cities were more aggressive, and they were about responding quicker to murders when they happen, and it was about stopping the toleration of the stuff that leads to murder, the drug dealing, the other stuff that goes on. You got to crack down, and you got to make it clear to people that if you kill somebody, we're going to come down on everyone in this neighborhood for the next week.
Well, Steve, you and I have spent a lot of time over the last couple of days talking to presidential candidates. We both had interviews separately with Mitt Romney yesterday. Am I right that Mitt Romney is a better candidate in an interview setting than he's appeared to be on the campaign trail?
Well, yeah, he certainly was more relaxed. I found him yesterday than he is when you see him on TV. He seems very stilted in the debates and things. One way that he was remarkably different in person was we asked him about empathy. We asked him about how does he relate to people who are not from his background, who don't have the kind of money he does, and he gave a fantastic answer. I mean, it was off the cuff. It was genuine. He talked a lot about his missionary work in his church, and I thought, boy, that's the Mitt Romney that people would want to see and relate to.
There's a desperation quality about him now on the campaign trail, and you don't really see that personality. He seems always to be playing defense and searching for his talking points and watching, out for the mistake or the gaffe. I don't know if it goes back to maybe probably earlier in the campaign where he said some things that just came right back to him. But he does, as you said, he doesn't seem relaxed, but his command of the issues in a one-on-one interview and his command of the room, I mean, he does seem, to have that special quality that one would be looking for in a CEO or a president or a leader of any sort. And for some reason, it just doesn't come through. Yeah. And I wonder if he's not spent too much of his time worrying about his opponents and attacking the opponents rather than showing us Mitt Romney and who he is.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got these sort of movie star good looks, and
he is a cutie.
He's a good-looking guy. He's got nice hair. There is a lot that he's got going for him in terms of just, like you said, presence and command of a room. He's on the campaign trail. He's been on defensive about this sort of base core issues in the Republican Party where he's not the strongest. I mean, he is a competent manager, CEO, economic type. Rick Santorum is, more of a fundamentalist Christian and things like that. He's not playing to his strengths to have to beat these guys, and that's hurting him, I think, on the in terms of the general election.
And there is that connection issue. I saw Santorum last night speaking to the Oakland County Lincoln Day dinner, and he just lit that crowd up. I mean, it was all the talking points. Faith and family and patriotism and American exceptionalism and everything they came to hear. Romney says a lot of the same things, but he doesn't say it in as sincere a fashion. I mean, this stuff just rolled off Santorum's tongue. On the other hand, I mean, if you're just hiring somebody on a resume, Rick Santorum, his resume is as thin as Barack Obama's was 4 years ago.
Except that Barack Obama's got 4 years in the White House. Yesterday, Detroit City Council approved boundaries for the new city council districts, going with option 3. Some say that the current council dragged their feet. They certainly did when it came to putting options before the community. Am I right that the new council should focus on a much better process for now when they have to redraw districts in 2021?
Well, they got to focus on a lot of things, and leave it to the leaders of Detroit to mess up just about anything that could be messed up. I mean, this was supposed to be a reform,
right,
and it turned out to be just another fight. What I'm worried about here in this whole district process is the raising of expectations of the citizens.
Well,
you're telling people, okay, now you're going to have your own councilman, woman assigned to your own neighborhood, and they're going to take care of your problems. And these folks are saying, well, wait a minute, we don't have any resources with which to take care of your problems. We don't have any money. Nobody reports to us. We can be a sympathetic ear, but in the truth, they can't get anything done. I think it's a huge flaw.
Well, I mean, I think that's a problem, and that was why most of the current council members opposed going to a district system. They said, we can't help you get your lights on or get the trash picked up any more than a regular citizen can. I think the value of the reform, though, is the accountability that it will bring to the council members. I mean, you won't have the council members like Joanne Watson and Kwame Kenyatta, who I think have really abused the idea that they are citywide representatives and represented no one. I mean, they represent ideologies or radical ideas because there's no way for citizens really to get at them. I mean, you don't run against a council member. You run for one of 9 seats. Now, somebody in their neighborhood could say, well, wait a second. If you don't want to participate in the EM process, you're disenfranchising all these people in this district. You're leaving us without a voice. I'm going to run against you. And so I think in that way, we're moving a little forward. But we do need to figure out how council members can maybe have a little more say over.
And it may be a little easier for voters. I mean, you remember last time out, there was something on the order of 250 or 300 candidates running for those 9 council seats. It was, I mean, you and I did the debates, and it was like running them through a processing center, And maybe when it goes to districts, you'll have a little more scrutiny of the candidates, fewer higher quality candidates running. I wonder what the current council members will do. Will they pick a district, or will they all decide to run for those 2 at-large seats?
Well, I'm hoping that, frankly, I'm hoping that some of them don't run. I mean, I think some of them have passed their usefulness in terms of representing people in the city.
The aforementioned Watson and
Well,
Kenyatta.
I think Watson and Kenyatta, I mean,
Brenda Jones.
I like both of them. I've known them, both of them a long time. I think they just have passed the point where they're helping the city. I do hope that the newer council members, the ones who were elected in 2009, stay. I hope that most of them find a district to run in or decide to run for one of the at-large seats.
But that's never as easy as it sounds. You're asking people to pick up their lives and move to a different community, perhaps, than the one they live in, because they do tend to be clustered now.
Yeah.
And there's, if you sit from the outside, you can say, well, just move. But if you're lived in a house, you've got a life, maybe your mortgage is underwater, and these folks don't exactly make a fortune.
No, they don't.
And to ask them to pick up and move may be asking a lot of them. Steve, President Barack Obama compromised on his mandate that religious institutions provide contraceptives as part of their insurance policies. Am I right that his solution to the problem is more offensive to civil liberties than the original mandate?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not sure that what was so offensive about it in the first place. I mean, this has been going on in states forever, that states say, if you are an employer, and we're not talking about churches here, we're talking about hospitals with religious affiliations, for example. I mean, places that serve the public and who employ people of all kinds of different religions. So I'm not sure why an institution with a particular religious affiliation should be able to say, we're not going to offer a basic health issue to our employees.
Well, the Supreme Court was pretty clear on that, I think, in their Hosanna-Tabor ruling, that churches have broad latitude to decide what's a religious function, and church institutions like schools in the Hosanna-Tabor case, and that they have broad latitude in setting the policies for those institutions. That was a unanimous decision.
Yeah, it was.
In this case, I mean, I saw it as a clear violation of the Conscience Clause, because ultimately the payer of these policies goes back to the Catholic Church, and it's up to the Catholic Church to decide its conscience. I don't think political ideology should trump theology. Now,
So
whether I agree with the church's policy or not is immaterial. That's, I'm not a member of that church. But in this country, churches do have broad latitude to decide what violates their conscience.
So you think there should be no requirements at all for them in terms of what kinds of, even the ones that take, I mean, we're talking about ones that take federal dollars for.
Oh, absolutely. I think in terms of their insurance policies and everybody else's insurance policies, that should be a contract between them and their employers without any federal mandates. But that's another issue. And I think mixing this thing up into the contraceptive and the right to life issue is really a distraction. It's about the Bill of Rights and whether the Conscience Clause still applies. And I think we've got to separate this out. I mean, we want to make it about access to birth control. Well, I mean, I don't think $4 a month that Walmart charges for birth control pills is a barrier too high. That's a contract between the institution and its employees. The government should have no role in it.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree with that. This week, the U.S. Attorney's Office disclosed the extortion, fraud, and obstruction of justice charges against Kahir Kazmi, Wayne County's Chief Information Officer. Then 2 more county officials resigned. Am I right that we're nearing the point where Bob Ficano can't really credibly stay in office?
Well, I heard him on Paul W. Smith's show this morning talking about this incident and the calls from the commission that he resigned, and he was trying to position himself on the other side here and saying, we got to get the criminals out of Wayne County. All of a sudden he's the reformer here and the victim almost. But he hired a Zom elder.
He did.
He created this little cabal that they put together, he and Turkia Muller, with all of their friends and family members. And he hired him. He put him in place, and then he claims to not to have known what was going on under his own nose. Well, he's the leader. Yeah. He's the boss. I mean, if he didn't know, it's his fault.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of caught between these 2 very unappealing poles. One is that he's corrupt too and was part of it. The other is that he's incompetent and wasn't managing the people who worked for him.
Pick one.
Pick one. They're neither one's all that appealing. And I think what I'm struggling with is, okay, what's the end game for Bob Ficano here? How does he get to a point where he says, I've taken control of this, mistakes were made, we're moving forward, I've cleaned out all the people who were doing this, and can he then emerge and say, I still am going to be the executive, I still am going to run the county, and have people believe that?
Well, the benefit for him is he's got 3 years before he has to face the voters. So, I mean, he could conceivably get to that 3-year point, and people could forget. And, he's got a pretty good machine that could undo a lot of damage. But the commission seems to not be letting go of this. They're going to continue to restrict and restrict and restrict and limit his ability to use county funds in the way he has used them in the past to fuel that machine.
Right. And, the election is 3 years away, but he's got to govern in the meantime. There's a lot of stuff that we need the county to be doing. Primarily, in my judgment, the county needs to be there as we move forward trying to reform Detroit's finances. There's going to be a lot of stuff that probably is going to have to get put off on the county and that we won't be able to pay for in the city anymore. But do you have any confidence that Bob Ficano could manage these services in the city any better than the city government has? I mean, he's really damaged his credibility that way. And so, it's 3 years off, but we need him to be a stronger executive now.
Sure, and he's got the FBI still all over that building.
All over them.
And these indictments are starting to come down. The closer they get to him, the less effective he gets. I mean, he's in a world of hurt here, and he hasn't done a very good job of articulating his defense or in convincing people that his hands are
clean. That he can move on. Yeah. We will be back with more Am I Right in a minute.